Everyone, thanks for being here tonight. We're here for City Council meeting. It's April 20th.
Ken Young.
Just joined the conference.
It's April 20th, 2020. We'll start the meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom.
Here.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Here.
Evans. Drew. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the invocation by Bishop Troy Carr, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening, everyone. The Word of God tells us to trust in the Lord with all our hearts and to lean not to our own understanding. And so let us pray. Dear God of the Bible, we thank you so much for this day, for our life, health, and our strength. And I must admit, at the different times I've prayed at the council meeting, this time is different. We're in uncharted waters. We're in unfamiliar territory. And I'm so glad that your word tells us that we can cast our cares on you because you care for us. I'm asking for your blessings on this meeting on tonight, that you would bless the mayor and the city council as they make decisions. Your word says that if we lack wisdom, that we can ask of you and that you would give it to us. So I'm asking that you would assist them to make decisions that are appropriate for your will. I pray for the first responders. I pray for those who are on the front line of this pandemic, who are risking their lives to help others. I pray for Governor Noem, that you would give her wisdom, that you would give her peace as she also has to make decisions. I pray for President Trump, that again, that he has to make difficult decisions in uncharted territory. But again, we take comfort in you, that you are in control. We ask these things in thy Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
Of the United States of America. It stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. The next item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. The council may adopt it as written or make certain alterations to it. Would there be a motion tonight?
So moved.
Motion by Armstrong and a second by Bill Evans to adopt the agenda. And we'll go to that was Lance Lehman. I couldn't see Bill's lips move. I thought it was him. But so we'll go to a roll call vote, one of many tonight.
Lewis. Here. Lehman. Drury.
Aye.
Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move past the general public comment because everyone who has a speaker request turned in is for a specific item, which we're going to handle in just a few minutes. So we'll go on to non-public hearing items. Items 1 through 32. We have no speaker requests for items. We'll open public comment on items 1 through 24, and we have no speaker requests on those items. So move on to consent items 1 through 24. Would the council like to adopt or approve all of these items or pull some off for separate consideration? Okay, John Roberts, sorry, my screen.
Not a problem. I just want to pull item 17. Thank you.
Darla Drew.
Number 29.
Yeah. Okay. So then do we have a motion to approve the balance from Lewis and Armstrong moved and seconded that motion. And all in favor of that motion, will say aye one at a time through a roll call vote.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Aye.
Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, that takes us to item 17. Approve partial abatement request for stormwater drainage utility fee for KTLD Company LLC for property located at 1221 Santana Court in the amount of $27.47. We'll go to John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to move this 2 weeks. The owner of this property called me yesterday. He was ill, so he couldn't make it to tonight's meeting. He wants to speak on it, so he would like to have it extended out 2 more weeks.
Okay, we have a motion by John Roberts, second by Armstrong, to move this item 17 to the May 4th City Council meeting. We'll go to roll call vote on that motion.
Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Now into non-consent items. Items 25 through 32. We'll open public comment on these items. We have some speaker requests for item 32. And we'll start with Doug Langworthy. And in case you haven't spoken here before or haven't spoken recently, you have 3 minutes at the podium. Watch these traffic lights over here and you'll get the idea. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Doug Langworthy. I'm the head instructor and owner of Rushmore Jukite Jiu-Jitsu. The school started at the Rapid City YMCA in 1967 and has been in continuous operation ever since. When the COVID-19 pandemic started, we changed our format to comply with the CDC guidelines and the governor's guidelines. So which was 10 people maximum, and we went to 10 feet apart. Then this body made the decision to close all the unnecessary businesses. And that, you didn't give us any kind of chance to change it, or any kind of mitigation, any kind of waiver, nothing, just closed. Now, if this school were 1 foot outside the border of an imaginary line, we would still be open. The excuse that you've used is to flatten the curve. What curve? In the state of South Dakota, this was as of 4 o'clock today, there are 56 people in the state of South Dakota in the hospital, most of them East River, from one facility. And there have been 7 deaths. The projection using what the state has is that there will be 94 deaths total in 3 months. What curve? I think the part that I dislike the most is that this body is using flattening the curve as an excuse to shred the Constitution and the 10 amendments here. So, I mean, you guys all took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. And it's not. And as Ben Franklin said, those who give up freedom for a little security get neither. So it's very frustrating on my part because I'm going to have to close my school. And rest assured, when I reopen it, it will not be in this city. Thanks a bunch.
Okay, next we have a speaker request from Tanchi Weaver.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think you're hearing a lot of already frustration. I'm here to speak on item 32, and I would echo to some extent what the previous gentleman said. There's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of pain, and a lot of suffering going on. And part of it is because people are not seeing the necessity for this draconian measure that we have been going along with for a couple of weeks now. But at the same time, our tax base is being eroded. People are seeing their businesses that they have worked so hard to build just go away, just evaporate. People's secure retirements are melting away like April snow. And it's a tough time because we don't see the reason for it, especially in West River. We have one half, actually more than one half the land mass in this state west of the river. There are 26 cases. And the one death that's attributed to Pennington County didn't happen here. So people are looking at this and evaluating it, and I think they're right. I think it's time to let business open again. And when you think about it, a few weeks ago when you made this ruling, people were being cautious. They were being respectful of each other's space. But at the same time, people are thinking, well, this is how we treat prisoners. We isolate them. We keep them from being in contact with others. We deny them the compassion, the human touch of interaction. And this is punitive. No one's done anything wrong here. They're just trying to make a living. And I think if you would ask most people what they're most worried about now, it's having the ability to care for themselves and their families. And that is in your hands, because you, with your vote, can either grant it or deny it. And whether or not it's something you actually can deny is up for debate. I have had a lot of family members and loved ones who have died of terrible illnesses and disease. And I have had a number of family members die from desperation and despair. And I will tell you, those who died from suicide suffered more. So please keep that in mind and open up this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Nick Uri.
Council, my name is Nick Uri, and I'm representing Grand Gateway Hotel, Cheers Sports Lounge. I found last week to be really interesting. Let's see, Wednesday on the 15th, we had the mayor on CNN, Anderson Cooper, demanding why the governor has not shut down the state, which I thought was a really interesting interview. President Trump, on his daily update of the coronavirus on Friday, referenced the same topic that was being referenced in the CNN interview in regards to why we have this hot spot. In fact, he asked the reporters to investigate it and find out what was going on. I mean, the owner is from China. What is going on with that? Then we have Governor Noem that comes out and gives her interview on Laura Ingraham this weekend, saying that she's not going to close down the state, that she was voted to uphold the Constitution, and that it's up to us. So, you know, it seems like there's a political fight brewing, and now if there's a fight, there's an agenda. And if you guys think that we as business owners are going to tolerate a political fight while we suffer, forget it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Cody Winia.
Good evening, everyone. It seems we may have some good news on COVID-19, on the COVID-19 front for a change. Saturday, South Dakota had a significant decrease in the number of new cases, which was 93. Of those 93, 86 were in Minnehaha County. Today was even better with only 50 new cases. Well, actually, that would be Sunday was better with only 50 new cases. of which 43 of them were in Minnehaha County and only 1 in Pennington. So that means in 1 month since this ordinance started, Pennington County has only 6 to 7 new cases, bringing our total to 10 cases, of which 6 have fully recovered. I just want to reiterate Noam's direction. We kind of already know, but this is for businesses serving public groups, and for which business means any enclosed facility operating as a bar, restaurant, brewery, cafe, casino, coffee shop, recreational or athletic facility, health club, or entertainment venue. Adjust business to offer alternative services to comply with CDC guidelines, reduce or modify gatherings of 10 or more when separation of at least 6 feet is not possible. Consider modification or suspension of daily business in the interest of public safety. So I'm here on behalf of some casinos in Rapid City. I think something that people didn't expect was the SBA requirements for these PPP loans. We are not eligible for the payroll protection program, which is really hard to get through. So these economic tools that are trying to keep us from folding in the midst of this are failing us. There is also an interesting study from the magazine The Economist. For every 1% increase in unemployment, suicides and drug abuse deaths increase by 0.1%. This means in 1 month, when unemployment reaches 30%, we will have an increase of approximately 70,000 additional deaths due to suicide and drug abuse in this country. Really all I want to say as a small business owner, I can confidently say that our businesses have a much better oversight than, say, a Walmart when it comes to things like following CDC guidelines and proper cleaning and disinfecting of our businesses. Our employees and customers mean everything to us, therefore we will do everything in our power to provide a clean and safe space. We have already done so much to be prepared for what some might call a soft opening for business. I believe the time to start reopening the city is now. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Steve Winia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I think it's important to remember why we decided to do this shutdown of certain businesses. It's so our hospitals weren't overwhelmed. Mission accomplished. The hospitals are not overwhelmed, and it doesn't appear that they will be. Now we've actually got the emergency room going to low census. I know this because I know someone that works there. I don't think that's probably ever happened at Rapid City Regional. So I own casinos and other commercial property here in Rapid City. We're not bars. Please don't lump us in with the bars, because that's not what we are. I put a letter in your packet outlining the guidelines that we will use when we reopen. It's easy for us to follow these guidelines. We've been doing this for a long time already before we were shut down. So it's easy for us to follow these. We don't own a bar stool. We don't need crowds to be profitable. We are at a tipping point with the deaths caused by the economic collapse and the deaths caused by COVID-19. I'm telling you, we're right here. We're right here. What my son just alluded to, the study on Economist magazine, it's real. I'm telling you, we're at a tipping point right here today. You know, we can't eliminate all the risks associated with everyday life. The hospitalizations in South Dakota from the COVID are, as was alluded to earlier, 56 out of, I think, like 1,800 cases now, positive cases in the state. 56 hospitalizations out of 1,800. 7 deaths. You know, that's a pretty low risk compared to the economic deaths this shutdown is creating In fact, if I knew the numbers, I can guarantee you that in South Dakota, I'll guarantee you, we have had at least 7 deaths. At least 7 deaths from this economic shutdown. I don't know those statistics, but if I could get my fingers on them, I'll guarantee it's more than 7. Thank you for your time and consideration in this vote tonight. I've worked my whole life with these businesses. For 30 years I've had these businesses. And I'm not going to give them up easily.
Thank you. And now Tom Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tom Johnson, CEO and President of Elevate Rapid City. We represent around 1,200 businesses in the community. It's getting less each week as we see drops with the economic contagion. First, let me say, we appreciate you evaluating this on an ongoing basis. That's part of what we're trying to do here as we balance the economy with public safety. So thank you for doing this and continuing to evaluate this. We really appreciate that. Also, we know it's hard to make decisions with incomplete information into the future without imprecise information. So thanks for trying to weigh, again, public safety with the economic contagion. We do look at the numbers every day. The governor last week talked about 22,000 that have applied since mid-March for unemployment insurance. We think that if you do the math with the population in Rapid City and the Black Hills, that means our unemployment rate has probably jumped from 3 to at least 8 at this point. We could see with the gig economy workers rolling in this week and next week, might jump over 10% unemployment. So it's getting worse and worse, which is to state the obvious. We at Elevate would love to see the economy open as soon as possible with this ordinance. And we know you share that goal. So we're not sitting here saying that you don't share that goal, because we know you do. And so we would just like to continue to try to balance those two scales, but with the idea that we want to open as soon as possible, we want to open as safe as possible, and we want to try to get back to normalcy as soon as possible, respecting those CDC guidelines. So we know that that's the direction you want to go as well, and we want to tell you that we respect that and we appreciate that, and we hope to get back into business as soon as possible. So thank you, Mayor and Council members.
Thank you. And that'll close our public comment period, and we'll continue now under ordinances with item 25. First reading, Ordinance 6408, an ordinance amending Section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by City... Just assumed I did something wrong again. A request by the City of Rapid City for a rezoning request for a no-use district to heavy industrial district for property generally described as being located at 5400 Old Folsom Road. Motion approved by Roberts. Second by Drew. Okay, and we'll go to a roll call vote, please.
Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Aye.
Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Roberts. Stroman. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 26, first reading, Ordinance 6409, an ordinance amending Section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by Ferber Engineering Company for Black Hills Corporation for a rezoning request from General Agricultural District to Light Industrial District for property generally described as being located at 2550 Tatanka Road. Motion to approve, Drew, and a second by Stroman. We'll go to roll call.
Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Aye.
Evans. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Item 27, first reading, Ordinance 6410, an ordinance amending Section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by Dream Design International for a rezoning request from General Agricultural District to Low Density Residential District 2 for property generally described as being located north of the current terminus Diamond Ridge Boulevard. Motion to approve by Roberts, second by Stroman. And we'll go to roll call.
Sorry. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Aye.
Evans. Drew, Nordstrom.
Aye.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 28, first reading ordinance 6411, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Dream Design International for a rezoning request from general agricultural district to medium-density residential district for property generally described as being located at the eastern terminus of Garden Lane. Motion to approve Lehman, second by Roberts. Roll call, please.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Aye.
Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. On to Public Works Committee items. Number 29, authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign a purchase agreement in the amount of $51,300 between the City of Rapid City and Abel A. Harmon, and authorize the Public Works Director to accept the warranty deed for Lot 3 in Block 5 of Lampert's Addition to the City of Rapid City, Pennington County, South Dakota, accepting therefrom any highway rights-of-way. Motion to approve Roberts. Second by Stroman. We'll go to Bill Evans on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During the Public Works meeting, I was concerned that some of the associated documentation was missing for this concerning the appraisal and also location maps, and those have since been supplied to us, so I have no further objections, and I would approve this.
Okay, Darla Drew.
Sorry. I have a couple questions for Dale Tech, if I could, please.
Please.
Hi, Dale. I did read through this a couple times, too, and could you explain to me the urgency of this, why we're doing this right now? Why do we have to do it now?
Certainly. The person that recently purchased this property, I believe last year, came to the city and wanted to develop the property. We had no idea that the property had transferred. It's right along our historic Skyline Drive. It's adjacent to the Skyline Wilderness area. Conversations with that individual came to an agreement that it'd probably be in the best interest of the city to acquire this property now. We are planning to do some work on Skyline Drive, and we'll need some additional right-of-way, so if the property developed, it'd be much more difficult to obtain that, and frankly, a whole lot more expensive to obtain it in the future than it is today.
I love that reason. I always want to preserve Skyline Drive and those beautiful scenic byways that we have in any possible way. So thank you for looking out for the future, and I yield.
Okay, we have a motion for approval on the table, so we'll go to a roll call.
Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Item 30, authorize staff to advertise for bids. Project number 2508, Fitzgerald Stadium renovation, estimated cost of $4,100,000. We'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason I pulled this from the Public Works agenda is that I needed a little bit more information to determine if we could satisfy the bid with the amount of money that's available. So if I may ask Pauline Sumption a follow-up question, please.
Okay.
Pauline, have you got some information for us on the availability for funds that would be available for this project to be able to be pursued?
So we have money budgeted both in the CIP and the vision funds for this project. The Black Hill Sports is supposed to be financing a portion of that because some of the money was budgeted for down in the 5-year plan, and I believe they have that process started. Is that what you're looking for? I guess I don't quite understand.
Sure, Mayor, if I may.
Please.
The question came up during the Public Works Committee meeting to delay this project because we didn't know where the revenue was going to be at by the time this project was underway. And so during that discussion, the comments basically centered around where the funding was at. I mean, the total amount. Can we cover this bill by the time it comes due?
Well, depending on projections and if they're right or wrong, and what the council chooses to do with the 5-year CIP plan, the way that the projections came in with the work I've done with Jared McIntyre, the projected shortfall in 2020 is about 12.5% for sales tax, and in 2021 is 7.5%. Now, when I go through both the Vision Fund and the CIP fund plans that are in place, we can adjust a few things within the CIP to accommodate those funds. And with the Vision Fund itself, right now we're sitting at over $3 million in the reserves, and the decrease is about $2.2 million between the 2 years, and so we would still have about $800,000 in the reserves if those projections are accurate.
Thank you. Mayor, I'll yield.
Okay, and now we'll go to Becky Drury on the phone.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve and hold the floor if I can.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second from Richie Nordstrom. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that we should follow through on this commitment to the Vision Funds, because this is something that we said we were going to do, and I want to make sure that we're true to our word. When we're voting these things in, we are voting them in on good faith, and so I just think that this should go forward, and I yield.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess just a comment from me. I believe, yes, we said this was fine. Situation now has changed dramatically. It looks like we'll have a huge hole in the sales tax revenues. I just don't know if it's responsible at this point to go ahead and say yes to this at something that's not absolutely urgent, not necessary. They probably won't have a season. Yes, it would be a good time to fix everything, but we're putting everybody out in this city right now. I mean, we have business owners that can't make their payments, and yet we're going through with a project like this at this time. I just think it's irresponsible, and I'd like to see this project moved out until we know what we're looking at for sales tax. I just don't think this is the time to go ahead and spend $4 million on Fitzgerald Stadium. I love Stadium. I voted for this. But right now, I can't say that this is something I'd like to see go forward. Even by July, we might know more. And then they'd still have the weather with them to make the improvements. But we're asking so much sacrifice of our people in Rapid City. I just can't support this. Thank you.
Okay, Bill Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in complete concurrence with Ms. Drew over here. I really want this project because I happen to love baseball, and I think it's going to be great when we finally get it done. There's a time and a place for everything. This may be the place, but it's certainly not the time, especially when we're looking across a bunch of people that are struggling to keep their doors open and ask to sacrifice. So I say we bite the bullet, we put this on the back burner, and we find out whether or not we're going to have the money to pay for this, but we readdress it at that time. So for today, I'm going to vote no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Laura Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. May I address some questions to,
Yes,
who
you
was
may.
it? I talked with Rod Johnson. Here we go. May I? Yes.
Yes.
I initially brought this up at the Public Works meeting and had a lengthy conversation with you, correct?
Yes,
last week.
you did.
Could you just kind of walk me through or could you just remind people what we had talked about?
Yeah.
About the actual bidding process and.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I'm Rod Johnson with the Rapid City Public Works Department, project manager for this project. We started this project about a year ago, when the funding was approved and have been, working through the design process. We're nearing the end of that design process. When we set up the schedule for that, we geared it toward a completion of season, July 15th season, which would then allow us a fall to get a lot of the construction going and be able to work through the winter, complete the project somewhere around the first part of May. Obviously, that's to basically maintain a baseball season. And that was basically through, coordination with the Black Hills Sports Group, so on and so forth. So we're at that point right now where advertising would have to happen reasonably soon, in order to make that schedule. In other words, we'd be looking at a June bid opening date. That gives us about 6 weeks to get contracts signed, that sort of thing. So that's the kind of window that we were working with, and that's why this is in front of you at this time. So with, obviously this is the first step of that advertising period, the advertising authority. With that, then, the advertising happens through the paper, and then once that happens, basically the project is out for bid, and we are then required to follow through with that bidding process until we get to that bid opening period. Obviously, when we get to bid opening, council has an opportunity to award or reject the bids.
And that was the point. That's exactly where I wanted to get to. So we can kind of tap the brakes on this, still do that, because I did take Mr. Roberts' comments from Public Works into consideration as well. And I think if my fellow colleagues just maybe move the bidding process forward, then when it circles back, we can have a little bit more discussion. So those were the points that I wanted to make, and I appreciate you sharing that with the public. Thank you. I yield.
Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. I was at the Public Works meeting too, and I paused also at this, looking at a substantial investment in a time when a lot of people are really hurting economically. And then I got an email, and I don't know if everybody else did, but from a contractor who has been around a long time, and he's done a lot of work in this city, and he's provided a lot of jobs. And he pointed out that construction is nearly always the first thing the government turns to restart the economy in difficult economic times. It's a huge employer. It means jobs. It means suppliers. It means a lot of things that could give us an economic boost. And I don't really look at this as some sort of frivolity. I think it's probably a good opportunity for us to complete a project that has been in the works, has been planned for years. And I think that it's actually going to be a bigger benefit to our community than just having a nice baseball park. I think it's going to be economically, it's going to strengthen our community.
Okay. John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much, Mr. Stroman. Those were great comments. And I think that is going to be one of the things that's going to be difficult and challenging for us going into the future, is getting this economy started back up and getting and keeping people employed. I have looked at this, and I also thought, well, maybe we should put this off for a year, maybe we should put this off for 2 years. But in reality, because this is Vision Fund money and we have no mechanism to transfer Vision Fund money to the general fund, it's money that's just going to be there anyway. And it's money that I agree with Mr. Stroman that we should use to incentivize and get this economy moving here this summer when we're going to need it. We're going to have to look at other ways going into the future to cut monies out of the general fund. We're going to have to tighten our belts up and make some very, very hard decisions. But this is a project that I totally agree will help our economy. And one of the things that you forgot, Mr. Stroman, is excise tax on everything that they purchase. You know, there's a lot of things when you look at this much money being put into the economy. You know, it's not only the taxes that are being paid on it, it's not only, you know, the money that comes into it once it's done, but all of those jobs, all of the employers at the time that this project is going to happen, which we are going to definitely need in that time frame. So anyway, thank you very much. I will support this going forward. I did look, like I said, at other options and what we could do, but like I said, our hands are kind of tied with this pot of money and what we can do with it. Thank you.
Thank you, and now we'll go to Becky Drury on the phone.
Thank you, Mayor. Segueing after Mr. Roberts is, could I ask the city attorney a question about, can we take money or stop money from being spent out of vision funds? What are the, I think we need a little explanation for the public about the different sources of funding, and our access to those funds is not available to the general funds. Thank you.
Sure. Becky Drury's asking our city attorney if we can use the vision funds for other needs.
Thank you, Mayor. Right now, no, there's an ordinance that prevents using vision fund money for the general fund or for any operational expenses. Now, of course, that's an ordinance that the city has adopted. You do have the ability to amend that ordinance at some point if that's something you want to consider.
Does that answer the question, Becky? Floor's still yours. Made a hang up sign, didn't she? Okay. Then we'll go back to Bill Evans.
Thank you. My only concern with this, and I'd be willing to vote for it if we have
Just joined the conference.
if we have control over whether or not we award the bid, and at that time, how long do you think it's going to take for those bids to come back? When is the timeline on that again?
According to our schedule right now, we're looking at a May 26th bid opening with a June 1st bid award. And I believe that you could probably slide that back 2 weeks and still work within the window. So somewhere in that June 1st to June 15th timeframe for bid
Well, my
award.
concern is that we're going to get the bids in, and then, oh, we're already doing this, and we can see the projections now that we're not going to have the money to pay for it. And then the train is rolling, and we can't stop it. And I've seen this happen before. Now, if I had some sort of assurance that we could decide to take that bid, put it on the back burner until we see where the incoming money stands, that would seem a little more prudent than what we're doing, just rolling ahead, because that was on the timeline. What I'd hate to see is other projects being cut because this one went ahead and received some sort of preferential treatment that way. I just think still it's a bit imprudent to be pushing ahead with this given the situation, because we have no idea where this is going to be in a month. We really don't. So I think I'm going to keep my vote as a no for now. Thank you.
Okay, now back to Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I want everybody to know that Bill and I both said we're not against this project. We're really very much in favor of this project. But right now, it just seems like the imprudent thing to do. I'm not worried about the construction industry. It's still going forward. We still have a lot of projects that are moving forward, and the construction people seem to be employed. I'm worried about the people in this room, in the arts, entertainment, and social industries. That's the thing that's being hit right now. And so, and they are also usually the first to pop back, too, when there's been an economic downtrend. So I think I'm still at a no. I'm listening, but, you know, to make an argument to me that this is a construction project that we need for economic stimulus or development really doesn't hold true for me, because we have so many developments that are really under construction and keeping people busy right now. I could be wrong. I guess I haven't really looked at a lot of the construction things, but it looks like we're doing pretty good with construction here in Rapid City. The people that aren't doing well are the people in the social industries. Thank you.
Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And like everybody else up here, I'm obviously concerned about this, at least the optics of this, if nothing else. But I do believe it's not without precedence for us to reject bids. Pretty sure we've done them in the past, and I know that it does happen all the time. So I think to say, no, we don't want to even get the bid at this point, it's probably not the right thing to do. I think we need to at least find out what the numbers are. We might even surprise ourselves given the nature of the economy at the moment. I hate to say it, there might be some cost savings out there at this point too, because people are, supplies might be a little cheaper, labor might be a little cheaper, people looking for work. And I think it's also just a good message to keep trying to push forward. I don't know how the money could be diverted to actually help the people that are in the trouble the most. And I don't say that flippantly. I don't really understand what we could do with that money differently that's going to affect the lives of people that are in trouble the most, because that's mostly money that's going to come from another government source other than ours locally, especially the vision funds. So I think to try to keep our vision commitments as good and our CIP commitments as good as much as possible. I think we've already funded a couple of these projects that we voted on last year, have gone forward already, and they're obviously affecting the overall quality of life in our community. And I think we need to keep focused on trying to do some of the good things too. So I just appreciate Mr. Stroman's words, Mr. Roberts, obviously, everybody else. I think we need to keep moving forward as much as possible. And if it comes back and we decide we don't have the money and we've got to figure out a way to make it work, then I'm more than willing to look at looking at the bid process later. Thank you.
Back to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, in my opinion, is that when June 1st timeframe rolls around, when we get a chance to take a look at the bids, that's when we can make that decision whether to continue or delay. So with the numbers that our Chief Financial Officer presented to us, I'm still comfortable at this stage. So wait till June 1st, and then we can decide what to do then at that point. Thank you, Mayor.
You're out of times.
I'm out of time?
You're out of times. We have a motion to approve from Becky Drury. We have a second. We have a second? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Aye.
Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Roberts. Stroman. Motion passes 7-2.
Okay, thank you. Now on to item 31. Approve the 2020 Unified Planning Work Program Amendment 20-02 and associated agreement.
Patsy Horton, Long Range Planning Manager. I'm here to request an amendment to our existing transportation planning work program to carry over 3 contract amounts from 2019. They're for 3 different contracts. One is for Meade County East-West Corridor Study, one for our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and then one for our website updates. These are federally funded funds. We get 81.95% for each of these contracts, with the 18.05% from local match. Just so everyone knows, Meade County has paid their local match portions. So these are just contracts that we're carrying over from 2019 to get completed in 2020.
Okay. Will there be a motion from the council on this item? Motion approved by Nordstrom. Second by Drew. Roll call, please.
Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Aye.
Evans. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Now on to item 32, review and discuss whether to allow the mandatory closures contained in Ordinance 6412 to expire on April 22nd, or whether the closures should be extended for an additional period of time. We'll open it up for discussion. John Roberts.
You're all chicken. I was waiting to get in last, and I had to go in first. You know, I think I've been very vocal on this from the very beginning. I believe that we accomplished very little in the last month. It's unfortunate. I hate to look every day and see where we're at, and, you know, I'm very happy that we're not spiking. I'm very happy we don't have 200, 300, 400, 500, 1,500 cases like Sioux Falls. It's unfortunate there. They had a huge surge go through a meat packing or a pork packing plant. Anybody that's ever worked in that kind of an occupation, like I have when I was younger, you're standing elbow to elbow with your workers, and there may be 1,000 of them there. So it's very easy for a spread to go through on some type of a virus like this. You know, we just are not seeing any numbers. I think we've got to set up here, we've got to make some hard decisions, we got to decide, you know, my belief is we need to open up. We open up, we watch those numbers, but we as a council need to decide where are we going to be before we do this again. How many cases is it going to be? We're looking at you know, not having a big peak here. Well, we're not getting one, and we're trying to flatten that curve, and we're not getting a curve. You can't flatten something you're not getting. So if we keep pushing it out and pushing it out and pushing it out, eventually there's going to come a point where we have to open anyway. And whether or not it's 5 cases more or 500 cases more, we're still going to come to that point where we're going to have to open up eventually. You know, it's unfortunate. There is really, we don't know. We don't know if what we did caused where we're at or not. You know, we do know that if we flatten the curve anymore, we may put Monument Health out of business. You know, you see them laying off people right now. You know, you see my wife 3 weeks ago, her hours were cut in half. She works in healthcare. You know, personally, I would have liked to have seen them lay her off. You know, I mean, she could have been making a lot more money on unemployment than she is working part-time. Plus, she'd be at home and she'd be safe. You know, all the people out there that said, I don't care about anybody, they're absolutely false. With my wife working in healthcare, we worry about it every day. I've got 4 children that live in major metropolitan areas. You know, my one son lives in Kansas City. They've had a few thousand cases, but only 18 deaths in a city of, you know, 1.2 million people. So this is affecting everywhere around the country differently. So we, as a council, I think it's time that we step up, we open up, you know, with common sense guidelines. We make sure that we keep an eye on the businesses so they are following the directives, you know, through the CDC, through the city, through, you know, what we decide. You know, my biggest heartburn in this whole thing is not knowing what may or may not have happened, but really my biggest problem was the fact that we never gave people a chance. We never gave them a chance. And you know, I said from the beginning, if we have spread, it's going to come out of either Walmart, Sam's Club, Runnings, Menards. You know, my wife and I were at Menards again last Saturday, and I keep going into these stores because, you know, I honestly am not really afraid that I'm going to get it. But we went into Menards, there had to have been 500 to 700 people in there. People are getting antsy. People are going out, and they're going out to what is open. And if we're not getting a spread from there, why would we get one from, you know, Liz's business out there that may have 10 or 12 people in it? or one of the casinos that might have 5 or 6 or 7 people in it. You know, I know from what they were doing before this happened, they were keeping their businesses a lot cleaner and socially distancing before we even shut them down and didn't give them the opportunity to do it. I know that Mr. Uri in the back was moving out tables, moving bar stools, moving so he could social distance in his bar 3 days before we closed him down. We didn't give these people a chance, and I think that's a travesty that we didn't even give them a chance. So anyway, I hope that this council tonight will open up, let this expire, let's open up, let's come up with a resolution of some good guidelines along with the CDC guidelines, and let's get people back to work. Thank you.
Darla Drew.
Hold on. There we go. I'd like to ask Tom Johnson a couple questions, if I could, please.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, would you like to answer questions?
Yeah. Well, it's your job. Nothing personal, Tom.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So the Elevate Group is offering consultation or conferencing on how to get this money, how to do these loans, how to get your business moving again, how to use the payroll stimulus, how to do that. Is that right?
We're doing several things. I can just give you the sales pitch here. We're operating our own bridge loan program. So we put out in the last month, I think, over $250,000 of loans up to $15,000 per business. I think we've done about 25 businesses. They've ranged from restaurants to hotels to consulting to manufacturing. So we've done our own loan program to get you to the SBA money. We've also consulted with hundreds of businesses on the Payroll Protection Act, or the payroll protection money, which is a different loan than the disaster money. So what are the differences between those two? And then what to do if you are laid off, where to go for unemployment insurance. And in South Dakota, it's called re-employment insurance. So yeah, we've done the whole gamut, including throw our own money at the issue with respect to loans.
So if we have somebody like the casinos that have laid off their people, they can't go for the Payroll Protection Act, right? I mean, is there something else they can do?
Well, I know I've talked to Senator Thune, Senator Rounds, and Congressman Johnson to try to, during the next round of stimulus, as we anticipate coming in the next week, that casinos would be allowed to be in that, and so would 501c6s, by the way, of which Elevate Rapid City is one. So we're trying to advocate for businesses through Anna Hayes, our public policy director, with our federal delegation to allow for casinos to be in this next round. Now, that's not enough right now, right, because they're not. I think your question was, are they eligible for payroll protection? No. Disasters? No. Can they go for the Elevate money and the state's, the Office of Economic Development money, which have $75,000 loans? Yes. So you could come in for our 15, you could come in for 75 from the state if you're a casino.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of my questions. I guess I've been thinking about, I saw this casino proposal, and I've thought that we need to think more about windows than roadblocks. And I'm not going to change my mind on opening businesses. I'm going to still stay with that. But I want to work with the businesses. Maybe we can do a task force and see what we can get together for proposals from the gyms, the bars, the coffee shops, those kinds of things. And then go ahead and open them up. If we have the kind of proposal that looks safe and that you guys are going to make sure this happens. You know, I've spent a lot of time in the nighttime life, certainly spent a lot of my money in casinos. It's a very solitary pursuit. It's not really social. And it's very different from a bar, and I agree with that. So it comes to me that not all businesses are created equal, even if they're just social gathering places. So I would recommend to this group that we get together a task force, that we really work with these businesses, that we listen to them and see how we can actually move them forward, because we do have a very low curve. And tonight, I'm sorry, we don't have that in place. I'm going to still vote for the businesses to be locked up. But I want to get this thing going again, if possible, within the next 2 weeks.
Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to continue the ordinance until May 6th, which is the Wednesday after the next council meeting. Can I get a second? And, yeah, so basically, folks, it's, say we haven't flattened the curve, we don't know. We have no way of knowing if we flatten the curve. We'll never know. Can't prove a negative, which is, fine. We're going to take the heat for that. That's life. But, people saying that Monument Health has laid off all these people because there's no disease here. Well, Monument Health made that decision that led to that in the first place. They are the ones that quit doing elective surgeries, as well as Black Hills Surgical Center quit doing elective surgeries back before this, when we shut everything down, because they were worried about being overrun. So that's what's led to their lack of employment for some of these people that are being laid off. But it's like 4% of their employees at this point, which is obviously not insignificant to the people that are being laid off, but it's not something that, I don't think our actions did not cause that. I think it's something that, the choice they made, a responsible choice they made to try to keep their beds available in case they were overrun. But that being said, we didn't close the schools. The governor did that, and I think that's kind of things, it was a responsible thing to do, and that's, I think, a lot of the feelings people are having right now. They're not used to having their kids around all day long, is driving them nuts. And I think that people are reading the national news. I mean, folks, we closed the bars. And the restaurants, yeah, we definitely shut down their walk-in business, but they're still, able to deliver, at least operate somewhat. I'm not saying they're killing it, but at least they're still able to be somewhat open. And, we don't have the testing here to know for sure what we've got going on, although Monument did start their antibody tests. And I see Mr. Roberts has said went and got one, or he's getting one tomorrow, and that's great. And hopefully that'll give us some more data here the next week that we can work off of. And so, all of that being said, I'm not one that's going to, we have Ellsworth Air Force Base, by the way, folks. This is a really patriotic town, supports the military very, very stringently. And out there right now, if you're within 6 feet of a person, you have to have a mask on. You can't have non-essential people can't be on the base. They have a restriction on their travel orders till June 30th. This is a city that's supposed to be so pro-military, but yet we're flying in the face of everything that they're recommending right now as a DOD. But like I said, I'm not one to reject evidence. And so, if in 2 weeks, and that's why I'm saying this, because I know right now we've already trying to work on some sort of guidelines to come forth, because I'm not going to just say open it up. We can't, like the mayor said, we can't just turn the faucet on. We've got to slowly turn it on. So we have to have some guidelines in place and see how they affect the models. And if they say that, we're looking good and the numbers are still low, I'm more than willing to open it up. I don't want this place closed forever. It just doesn't help me. It doesn't help anybody. But even the president came out with this staged gating process to go phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And, to think that we're going to override, the national policy even more with when we should open up, I think we should probably at least listen to that part. They're saying 14 days of downward trending on your tests just to get to phase 1. And but if we get some of those things coming up, if we see our continued flat line of our numbers, and we have some basic guidelines in place that people can follow, I'm more than willing to vote for that. But I think just say, let's turn it on all tonight, just go back to where we were, I just think that's going to be chaos. I think we have some basic guidelines in place before we can do that. And so I think everybody up here is willing to go in that direction. Just to open it up willy-nilly right now and just say back to normal is not a responsible act either. So that's my motion.
Bill Evans.
Thank you. I'm going to take a little bit of, I'm just going to disagree with Mr. Roberts over there that we've accomplished very little. I'm going to applaud Mayor Allender and the City Council for taking these mitigation things in effect and passing the policies we've had early. I do believe that due to these things we put in place, we've helped to dodge the bullet here, unlike they have in Sioux Falls. Now, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't put any of these rules in place for 2 weeks after we did. Now, the reading I've done today, and it was a lot, they don't really know where the virus, infestation started up at the Smithfield plant. But now they're thinking somebody brought it into that plant from the community of Sioux Falls, not from someplace outside of Sioux Falls. And because those people were working in such close quarters, that's how it spread. You go back to March 6th, in that case of the choir up in Washington State, they needed to meet because you needed to have your choir practice. Everybody's suffering. So 60 of them met. And 45 of those 60 came down with the virus in 3 weeks, and 2 of them are dead. Now, this thing is very sneaky, and You don't see it coming. And the fact that we haven't had any cases doesn't mean we won't be getting them in the near future now. The fact that your house didn't burn down does not mean we should get rid of all the fire, code laws. And if there is a wastebasket burning over in the corner of your bedroom and you leave, I'm pretty much certain your house is going to be burned down when you come home. So right now we've got the thing under control. We're lucky. We're also doubly blessed that we're not having floods and particularly tornadoes to deal with. So I think we should count our blessings that our community has one problem to worry about and not several. So I'm going to continue to support this. I do believe, when I asked the question flat out to Monument Health on Friday, did our policy have something directly to do with the spread being arrested here and not being arrested in Sioux Falls in that 2-week delay? Can we state with confidence that it actually did make a difference and mean that there's some scientific fact behind that? And they answered flat out, yes. And they didn't say, well, maybe, no, they said, yes. And you all heard that on the call last week. So I'm going to believe what we're doing has helped the community, and in the long run, it's going to save everybody a lot more. I got to tell you, a funeral's a lot more expensive than missing a couple weeks of wages. It really is. So if we can avoid any of those, we're all going to be healthier. So I'm going to vote to protect the people of the city, and I think that's the oath we took. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to take a little bit different direction on this. I'm going to support the motion, but with the extension of it, because I want to get a chance to review some of the recommendations that the restaurant people came forward with, some of the other people that made some suggestions, but I'd like to get a little chance and offer that opportunity to the mayor so he can get a chance to take a look at the review of those recommendations and suggestions. So we're going to need some time to vet that. It shouldn't take all that long to get a confirmation on that information. The some of my comments were yesterday are different today because of the new data that's coming in. As Mr. Evans stated earlier, is that the line at the curve or flattening of the curve is taking place at Monument Health. But again, I want to have that opportunity to take a look at that data and see what it is showing for us, and giving the mayor the opportunity to come up with the strategy to develop a plan for reopening. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but some of the constitutional items that were put towards us tonight, I keep coming back to the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And that's where I'm reading about health and safety. And that gives us, in my mind, just my short read of what the professionals are saying in their summary is that we got that authority. The other concern that I have is that I've been putting information out there about my experience in Vietnam. I really got upset with some of the comments that were made about just letting this go open, and the mayor's suggestion about the red line curve versus the blue line curve. For me, what that did was strike an image for me. What I recall from Vietnam is that this division was charged with going up this hill. They took a massive amount of casualties. For me, opening this all up all at once is the same thing as that division going up that hill to take over what the North Vietnamese controlled that hill. Mass casualties, came back down off the hill, got ambushed again by the NVA. I don't want to see that happen to our employees here and the workforce within the city of Rapid City. Most of those employees within the workforce do not have sick leave. Yes, they got health insurance, but my concern is that the health insurance will go up after they spend time within the hospital. If they're not in the ICU, I'm virtually guaranteed that their health insurance premium is going to go up. I'm not in favor of that. So I'd want to give the mayor some opportune time to develop a plan to come forward so we can do the reopening. It's very brief. I've got a lot more to say, but let me stop there, Mayor. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Becky Drury on the phone next.
Thank you, Mayor. When I voted for the ordinance initially, when it was an ordinance, not a resolution, it was to allow time for our health facilities to get their ducks in order so they were prepared for the pandemic. We've done that. We've flattened the curve. There has been no great rush in our area, and for that we're extremely lucky. But again, there's really no data that we can turn back and look at that says what we did helped or what we did didn't help, because you can't measure those things. But what you can measure is the businesses and how they're hurting economically. I really support some type of opening for this, some type of soft opening. And Mayor, if you are working on a plan to do that, I wish you would share it with us so everyone could have the opportunity to hear what's going on. I yield.
Laura Armstrong.
Thank you. I want to start off by thanking everyone, especially our healthcare workers and the ones at Monument especially. I've been bombarding them with questions for the last 10 days, and I think I've kind of worn my welcome out with them. Our concern primarily is not to overwhelm our healthcare system and to support our healthcare providers. Monument has done an exceptional job to prepare, and I am very pleased with their ability to find additional space, get more beds, increase the lab turnaround time, and train their staff. However, the fact remains that we have a drastic shortage of COVID tests, and because of that, because we have that lack of testing, it restricts accurate, reliable, and evidence-based data. Most of our local medical providers are not confident with these low numbers listed on the State Department of Health website that everyone's referring to, as we've only been testing for about 3.5 weeks because of the limited availability of these tests. In order to get a test, priorities go to healthcare providers and first responders, rightly so, or the other qualifiers: be 65 years of age, have an autoimmune disease, a serious pre-existing condition, plus a fever and shortness of breath. So for months, if someone was ill and they did not meet that minimum criteria, they didn't get a test, and they were told to go home and self-quarantine. And by doing that, it grossly skews the DOH numbers and lulls everybody into a dangerous false sense of security. In fact, I have received conflicting information regarding these actual numbers of COVID tests in Pennington County, specifically Rapid City. My understanding today is we have the abysmal numbers of tests completed in Rapid City, 343 tests. 343 tests have been done since the end of March. And remember, most of these tests were prioritized to our healthcare providers and our first responders. So this begs the question: how many of the general population actually got a COVID test? Probably not much. Does that really give us a true snapshot of what's going on in our city? Would you be confident lifting these restrictions knowing that very few people in Rapid were tested? I, for one, I'm not comfortable with that kind of decision, knowing that it would impact somebody that I love, I know, or I care about. The honest truth is we do not have confidence with these numbers of COVID-positive people here in West River. Believe it or not, there are still many asymptomatic persons contributing to community spread. Some may even be here in this room. I agree that some people are doing an outstanding job of staying at home and using good hygiene. However, what's most concerning to me is there is a significant amount of people who are not social distancing, not using common sense, and not taking special precautions. Just take a drive around town. You even referred to it, Mr. Roberts. Those crowded big box stores, jammed parking lots, large park gatherings. In fact, on my way here this evening, I stopped off and I counted 4 dozen vehicles at the bottom of M Hill. That's not social distancing, folks. And something else is very important to consider. The best predictions have this apex somewhere in mid-June. That's 56 days away. And that's if everybody complies with strict CDC guidelines to slow the spread. And by no means is my saying that we have to wait until then, but we need much more evidence-based data from experts such as epidemiologists, virologists, statisticians, economists, and other relevant medical personnel before we can confidently move forward. And most importantly, we need more testing. Yes, we can agree that we are all concerned about the economy. Yes, I do understand the significant negative economic impact this virus is having in our community. And it's a serious challenge trying to eliminate and reduce the community spread and encouraging safe business practices. But if it came back a second or even a third time around, that's not good for the economy either, folks. That's why this council's meeting every 2 weeks and we revisit this issue. Trust me, everybody wants to get back to normal ASAP. We've all seen the graphs and the charts showing the predictive models on the bell curve. And in this situation, I like it to driving. Mr. Nordstrom referred to it as going up the hill. So if you're driving and you're going up a hill or you're going around a blind corner, do you speed up or do you slow down? Simple human nature and pure common sense says you take caution and you do not hit the gas pedal. You proceed cautiously and carefully. And that's exactly where I'm at. Thank you.
Chad? John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a substitute motion if I could. I'd like to make the substitute motion that instead of putting out until May 4th, that we do it until next Monday. So what would that be? So we put it on a one-week schedule. As fast as everything is changing all the time now, I don't think that we should be doing this on a 2-week. I think that we should be doing it as quickly as possible, and that way we just have a special council meeting set up and we can start discussing it a little sooner. If I can get a second? And then I would like to speak just for a minute. You know, the majority of what Councilwoman Armstrong said, I agree with. I agree with a lot of that. We need way more data. The problem is the real important data should be the number of people hospitalized, should be the number of deaths. You know, that sounds sad, but it really makes no difference if we've got 40,000 people infected in Rapid City and nobody's going to the hospital. So that data really isn't all that important. And that's the reason why, yes, tomorrow I am getting tested for antibodies, because I have spoke to literally hundreds of people in the community that had some kind of an illness before we started testing, and they were very concerned, or are very concerned, that they have had it. You know, with my wife, it was so severe with her, she was sick for a month. She coughed, she had a terrible cough. You know, you go to the hospital says, well, you have a virus, go home, take liquids, and, you know, get rest. Well, Laura, if they're not hospitalizing these people for that, and they're not dying, all the data in the world doesn't make any difference. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will stop.
Thanks. Okay, let's see. Same item, different motion. So everyone's in the queue has spoken already, so we'll go back to Bill Evans. There was a... The motion on the table now, the substitute motion, is to postpone this 1 week till next Monday. Revisit it, presumably in a special meeting. Well, at least audio. Okay. Chad Lewis? Richie Nordstrom.
Mayor, if you come up with a plan before Monday, I'd like to have that opportunity to give you the chance to call a meeting rather than us waiting till next Monday. But I'll yield to your call on that for, because I think if you got a plan before Monday, let's do it.
Okay, that sounds good. My notes here that I just took, I have a plan, a draft plan in hand. I just had that evaluated by our health system today. So in the next couple of days, I'll set up small group meetings with you to let you know where I'm at, get your input on it, and then we can, at the latest, go for a next Monday meeting. Does that answer your question? Okay, did I answer your question, Becky?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other conversation on this item? Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're talking the 27th or the 28th? 28th? Okay. Okay. I guess I'm open to discussion. I mean, I don't want to be, I have no problem meeting again if we got to do it again, so that's fine. If we have some evidence, I just think that the more evidence we have, the better we're going to be, because we're going to have some of those results back from the monument, hopefully, and how many people have actually, taken that antibody test, and the results supposed to take 3 to 5 days. So I'm just hoping we can have some of that evidence before we make any decisions, because I will make obviously, well, I don't
I'm not
care,
sure we're
I
gonna
don't
be-
care about you.
Not sure we're going to be privy to that information.
They won't give us information on how many people actually, okay, well.
Unless they report it to public health.
I just think obviously the most evidence we can have, the better to make a decision. I think 2 weeks as opposed to 1 week is not a huge difference in that point, but I'm not going to vote against the motion just because I think I have no problem meeting in public as much as possible. That's fine.
Okay, back to Bill Evans.
Thank you. I did want to mention one thing that nobody's brought up so far, and that is potential liabilities and stuff. I know that the NCAA tournament that I follow, March Madness, was canceled. $700 million loss for NCAA. They don't take those decisions lightly. They have great experts, they have great analysts, and they have the best minds and legal experts in the world to consult. They don't do something like that unless it's serious. The same discussion's going on about various sports, from pro baseball right into the NCAA football season, which is a $7 billion item. So if you think people aren't thinking about this seriously, to cancel something that's $700 million is pretty dramatic. So please keep that in mind, that better minds than us are studying this, and we'd be wise to follow their lead, because they've got a lot of expertise all over the world that is working with this. So I think we need to not ignore the history. Thank you.
Okay, back to Chad Lewis for the last time.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do recall there's a reason that Mr. Landine had gone to Wednesday after our meetings as they have to enact these ordinances. I think that did something to do with the publishing and the legal process. If we might be able to have to adjust the date for that, I would appreciate it if you could clarify that for me, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, the reason we had gone Wednesdays was then if you take action on Monday, we can either have it published Tuesday morning and it becomes effective on Tuesday then, or on Wednesday morning. I know that it's harder to get it published if you take action Monday night. It's difficult to get it published on Tuesday morning. I also appreciate that you probably don't want to necessarily, if the decision next Monday is to lift the restrictions or amend them to perhaps allow businesses to open up under restrictions, that you probably don't want to keep businesses closed any longer than you need to. But from a publishing perspective, having it go till Wednesday makes it easier to get published. I think we may be discussing, it sounds like, some updated recommendations and rules. Then we could, if you approve those on Monday night, then Tuesday we could publish those or try to, or Wednesday morning, and we would have a transition period. We could also certainly look at whether or not we could handle it through enforcement on Tuesday. If you were to loosen up the regulations, then we could take a more laissez-faire approach on enforcement on Tuesday until it was published on Wednesday. So it's kind of up to you, but that's why we were pushing it out till Wednesday.
Okay, I appreciate that, and that was kind of my point. And I'm not saying I'm going to support it next Monday for sure or anything. I want to make sure the evidence is there before I do anything. But if we do go that direction, I just want to make sure that, like Mr. Landine, we have the ability to get that information out to the public in a timely manner and not try to force it out and everybody comes out not quite on top of it. So that's my entire thing there. I don't know if you want to amend your motion or not. Of course not. All right, that's, I'll still support it, but I think it's kind of a, you're grasping at straws with that one.
Would you like to offer a substitute motion to extend the date?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Extend the date till the Wednesday after that, the next Wednesday.
That'd be the 29th. 29th,
yes, thank you.
April 29th.
Yeah, please, thank you.
So it's a substitute motion to extend the date to April 29th, still with keeping a Monday meeting. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Stroman. Okay. Richie?
Sorry, Mayor. Just to clarify, I'm going to be voting no on either of these, because if you get a chance to come out with sooner than that, let's do it. Let's roll it out. Thank you.
Well, if I'm ready, I won't lag around until next Monday to spring it on you, so you know. All right. Let's have a roll call. The motion is to extend the closures till 29th, April 29th, and have a roll call then.
Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
No.
Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
No.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Motion passes 6-3.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, everyone. Now, we only have one item on the consent public hearing calendar, so I'll just read it. Item 33, alcohol license, Fresh Incorporated, doing business as Joe's Place Bar and Grill. 4302 Pendleton Drive for retail on-off sale malt beverage license. Roberts makes a motion to approve. Second by Nordstrom. Roll call, please.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Yes.
Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Item 34, under non-consent public hearing items. Second reading, ordinance 6403, and ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Black Hills Habitat for Humanity for a rezoning request from office commercial district to medium density residential district for property generally described as being located at 611 Herman Street. And the recommendation from committee was to approve in conjunction with the associated major amendment to the plan development application file 20PD005. Motion to approve from Drew in conjunction with the, okay, and a second by Lewis. Okay, roll call, please.
Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Aye.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, item 35, second reading ordinance 6404, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Long Branch Civil Engineering for BFD Development LLC for a rezoning request from neighborhood commercial district to low-density residential district for property generally described as being located at the northern terminus of Hawkins Street. John Roberts?
Thank you very much. I need to abstain from the next three items, please.
Okay, duly noted. Anyone got a motion? Motion to approve by Lehman, second by Lewis. We'll go to roll call, please.
Armstrong, Lewis, Lehman, Drury,
Aye.
Evans, Drew, Nordstrom,
Aye.
Stroman. Motion passes.
Okay. And with Roberts abstaining. 36, second reading, ordinance 6405, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Long Branch Civil Engineering for BFD Development LLC for a rezoning request from Office Commercial District to Low Density Residential District for property generally described as being located at the northern terminus of Hawkins Street. Motion approved by Drew and a second by Nordstrom. We'll go roll call again.
Drew, Nordstrom,
Aye.
Stroman, Armstrong, Lewis, Lehman, Drury,
Aye.
Evans. Motion passes 8-0 with Roberts abstaining.
Okay, was that 36 or 37? That was 36? Item 37, second reading, ordinance 6404, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Long Branch Civil Engineering for BFD Development LLC for a rezoning request from medium-density residential district to low-density residential district for property generally described as being located at the northern terminus of Hawkins Street. Motion to approve, Lewis, second by Lehman. We'll go roll call again.
Lewis, Lehman, Drury,
Aye.
Evans, Drew, Nordstrom,
Aye.
Stroman, Armstrong. Motion passes 8-0 with Roberts abstaining.
Okay, thank you. Item 38, second reading, ordinance 6384, an ordinance to add a pre-submittal meeting to the requirements for development engineering plans by amending section 16.08070 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion approved by Drew. Second by Nordstrom. And back to a roll call.
Roberts, Stroman, Armstrong, Lewis, Lehman, Drury,
Aye.
Evans, Drew, Nordstrom.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, item 39 is the bill list, and we'll go to Finance Officer Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $6,327,191.75.
Motion to approve Nordstrom. Second. Second by Stroman. Roll call.
Evans, Drew, Nordstrom,
Aye.
Roberts, Stroman, Armstrong, Lewis, Lehman, Drury.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have an objection? Turn on your mic.
Yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed that we haven't been able to make a video conference work. I've understood there are some concerns with privacy and whatnot. I think so many of these companies have addressed those concerns, and for what we do in a public meeting anyhow, it's all out there. It doesn't really matter. We're not doing anything behind the backs of people, and so it doesn't matter. The main concern is, bombing in and people coming in. That can be controlled by whoever is moderating the whole thing. I know that the Facebook security guy, who is a professor at Stanford, recently moved over to Zoom and did an interview on, I think it was CNBC the other day, talking about security and how all these backdoors have been addressed. And he himself uses Zoom, and they use Zoom at Stanford. The city of Los Angeles is using Zoom for their video conferencing. I think they probably have greater risks of being hacked than we do. So I just think we need to get on the ball. The school board's doing it. Airport's doing it, Civic Center Board's doing it. I think we need to come up with a reasonable video conferencing plan that works so we can do this and be quick on our feet to react to like this next vote that's coming up. And if we do have some concern about hacking into our server or whatnot, then the solution might be just have a domain name specifically for these names. I know you're invited using your email address. Perhaps we have a separate email address, bill.evans@rapidcitygovernmentmeetings.com or whatever. We have no security risks in that case, so I think we need to get that set up and running in the next week. Thank you.
Now, we're going to defer to the IT department on that. He brought it up at an earlier meeting, and my instructions to him at that time was that we weren't in a position at that moment to spend money on that, and there were a number of other issues going on at that moment. So, Jim Gilbert, if you'd like to comment, you can. You could just Wizard of Oz us from back in the booth if you want to.
Yeah, probably fine because the camera's not on me. The other isn't really what program we use. We'd probably use Skype because our system uses a different interface into the monitors. But it really is, right now, our staff is reduced to the point where we would need probably 2 or 3 people in here to run the meetings. And obviously, cities like Los Angeles and stuff have full video productions. So we're working out the kinks. We'll get everything probably sometime this week. We've got the audio stuff pretty well baked, but there will still need to be some discussions about staffing and how we're going to handle a monitoring of a system such as that. Could you please rephrase, use your mic?
The mask keeps me from being loud. My question is, since it's going to be a virtual meeting or could be a virtual meeting, is it even necessary that we worry about the equipment in this room? I mean, I know that the person who's hosting the meeting, and we've been experimenting with my own family and my 30-some cousins, just to see how well it works. We can control who speaks. We can control who actually joins the meeting. Anybody who wants to be part of the meeting from the public could possibly have a phone-in only number, as we've been doing already. So I don't see as a security problem, but I don't know as whether or not the equipment in this room should really have anything to do with that if it's a virtual meeting, since nobody needs to be here. So that's my point.
Okay. Does anyone here have an objection to adjourning? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.